This entire military is one cohesive, dedicated force. And the threats to our nations, they don't sleep. They're watching our every move. Iran, Russia, China, North Korea, ISIS, Al-Qaeda. They may be watching this right now. Our military should not be mistaken for a cable news gabfest show. We don't care what you look like. We don't care who you voted for, who you worship, what you worship, who you love. It doesn't matter if your dad left you millions when he died or if you knew who your father was. We have been honed into a machine of lethal moving parts that you would be wise to avoid if you know what's good for you. We will not be intimidated. We will not back down. We don't want war. But if you want war with the United States of America, there's one thing I can promise you, so help me God. Someone else will raise your sons and daughters.
Military Broadcast Radio, the station that's giving veterans a voice.
Find us on the web at mbradio.us.
Opinions expressed in this program are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of any entities they represent.
Find us on the web at mbradio.us.
Join Terry with Tracer Rounds every Tuesday at 7 p.m. Central to hear interviews with veteran artists, veteran business owners, and businesses that support veterans. Tune in to see if you're on target. Catch us on Roku, Amazon Fire TV, and MB Radio.
Welcome back to Tracer Rounds. I'm your host, Terry, and you are on MBR, where we're giving veterans a voice. And tonight, the veteran we're giving a voice to happens to be my uncle, Loren Dahl, who is an Air National Guard veteran, and he's going to talk about his service. Welcome, Loren.
Thank you. Good to be on.
Yeah, I'm so excited to have you on the show. I'm following in very hallowed steps with my uncles have been in the service. I have three uncles that have been in the service and a grandfather that has been in the Army as well. And so I'm following in very hallowed footsteps, and I'm happy to welcome you tonight. I wanted to talk about you're one of seven because you're my mom's brother. So it's my mom's side of the family that has 7 children, and you're two of the brothers, you and your brother, joined the service. And so one joined the Army National Guard, and the other one joined the Air National Guard. Why did you choose the Air National Guard rather than the Army, like your big brother?
I've always been fascinated by airplanes, and so that was more appealing to me. And my brother was already in the Army National Guard before I signed up, and I knew he had to go out in the desert for 2 weeks every year. And anyway, I had always planned on going to college. I was taking all college prep courses my senior year of high school, and I thought I'd probably be a math teacher like my dad. And so I thought, well, it'd be nice to be able to get my military service over at the same time that I'm going to college. And so actually right before the start of my senior year of high school, I went over and signed up for the Air National Guards. But they actually told me that there was a 2-year waiting list to get in at that time because of Vietnam.
Oh, wow.
And so they didn't give me much hope of actually getting in. And so in the meantime, during that school year, my best friend, Dan Adamson, he had signed up to go to an electronics school in Denver. And I'd always been interested in electronics too. I thought, maybe radio and TV repair would be a fun business. And he talked me into signing up to go to that school also. And then right at the end of my senior year, I got a call from their National Guards, and they wanted me to come over and take a test. And I almost turned them down. I said, I've already signed up to go to an electronics school in Denver, and so I don't think I'd be interested. But they said, well, go ahead and come over anyway and take our test. And so I went ahead and did that. And I think it was a week or two after I took the test, I got a call, and they said, you got your high score in electronics. They said, our tech school is in Denver, Colorado, at Lowry Air Force Base, and you can go to it for free.
Oh, there you go.
And so I ended up taking them up on that. And what was kind of cool, another guy that I had met in high school, he was in typing class with me. He had actually gone over and taken a test too, and he got the very same assignment I did, and we left together on the same airplane for Lackland Air Force Base on August 4th of 1969. And so we were going to be together it was going to be about 7 months with basic training and the tech school. And but the bad thing is he had gone motorcycle riding right before we left, and he had gotten into some poison ivy.
Oh no!
So we just barely got to Lackland Air Force Base, and they're checking us in, and they see these red splotches all over him, and they put him in medical hold.
Oh no!
So he ended up late, and he ended up a couple of weeks or more behind me. So we didn't get to be roommates at Lackland, but once he got to Denver, we eventually became roommates and became best of friends. I actually built a cabin for him up in Cascade after we got back,
Oh wow!
and so he was a really good friend, and it was kind of nice having somebody you knew with you in the school.
Yeah.
And so I really enjoyed the training. Electronics was very interesting, and I'm glad that I learned what I did. But actually, I probably enjoy building more than I would have an electronics career.
Right. So what was your MOS or your job specialty in the Air Force then? Because you did electronics, but what did you do specifically?
Well, my title was Automatic Weapons Control Systems Mechanic, and that was actually repairing the radar system in the F-102 fighter jet. The radar system in the fighter jet is made up of about 30 different black boxes situated in various places throughout the airplane.
Oh wow!
And so when pilots, this is the radar that actually controls the rockets that they fire. They had two different kinds of heat-seeking missiles. Well, they had heat-seeking missiles and then radar rockets that had a radar antenna in them that would go right to the target, and that the pilot would have a scope that would show the targets. And when something was malfunctioning, the pilot would come back and tell us that there was a problem, that the scope wasn't working right, and so we would have to diagnose and determine which black box was causing the problem. And so we'd pull that box out of the airplane, and in our radar shop, we had 2 complete mock-ups of the whole system that's in the airplane. And so we could take that black box and plug it in to where that box belongs in the system and see what it's doing on our scope. And and if we determine that that problem's coming from that black box, then we got to open that box up and determine which part is causing the problem. It's usually a relay or a capacitor or a resistor or something. So then we'd have to unsolder that part and solder in a new part, and then run it back on the mock-up again and see if that fixed it. And if so, then we put it back in the airplane again.
Yeah.
And hopefully it works for them. So that was an interesting job. It was kind of complicated, and the one thing about the Air National Guards, they're on active duty every day of the month. The pilots are on active 24 hours a day, and and so there's full-time people that are there every single day,
Yeah.
and so we always had real knowledgeable people to help us, if we're having trouble diagnosing something, and so that was good.
So did you get to go out on the plane a lot, or was it mostly that the planes came in and that you had to work on the planes in the hangar or on the runway or tarmac, wherever they were?
The radar shop had a hangar big enough that we could put 2 jets in at the same time. So
Wow.
we always we were always working indoors on them. Which, that was nice because one thing about our unit is being it was full time. Well, we had to do 2-week field training like all the other guards, but
Right.
our unit always went to Florida and competed against the regular Air Force. They'd pull targets up out over the ocean, and they'd go out and try to shoot them down. And our unit actually usually took first place almost every year in that, but they didn't need all of us to go to Florida. They only needed a certain amount of support staff, and so it was mostly the full-time people that went to Florida, and so the rest of us, we could do our field training anytime we wanted to. You just had to do an extra 14 days a year, and I mean, you could go over every Saturday for 14 Saturdays and
Oh, wow.
get your field training in that way. But what I usually did it 2 weeks all at once, but I'd do it in the wintertime at the very coldest time when I didn't want to be working outside.
Oh.
So
Makes sense. Me too. I would do it too.
well, that worked out pretty good.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, when it got that cold, we were a little slow working outside anyway. So that was one thing that was really nice about the Air Guards in comparison to the Army Guards, where everybody had to go all at the same time.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, the whole unit's going. If somebody's going to the field, you're all going. Going to the desert or wherever they send you.
So I never got to go on any trips with them, but
Oh. So how many years were you in?
You were required to do 6 years, and right when my 6 years was almost up, they were going to transition from the F-102 to the F-4 fighter jet. And so if I had stayed in, I would have had to start taking correspondence courses to learn the new system. And I was busy enough with construction that I didn't really look forward to having to do more training. So I figured it was a good time to get out.
Let's see. Well, we're going to take a quick break and we'll be back and we'll talk about what you did on the civilian side of the house when you weren't actively engaged with National Guard duties. So we're going to play Sweet Potato Pie, Stand Up, and we'll be right back.
From the mountains to the prairies, to the oceans, white with foam, God bless America, my home sweet home. Stand up for the red, white, and blue. Stand up for the values we hold true. With gratitude I'll stand as our flag begins to wave for the land of the free and the home of the brave. Stand up with your hand on your heart. Stand up for the freedom it imparts. Bless all who stand for justice. Bless all who stand for peace. In the home of the brave and the land of the free. Our flag still stands for freedom, for which we paid the price. We honor and respect those who made the sacrifice. So I'll stand up for the red, white, and blue. Stand up for the values we hold true. With gratitude I'll sing as our anthem starts to play for the land of the free and the home of the brave. Stand up. We stand for Sergeant John Snyder of the United States Army, Specialist for the class Robert Sonny of the United States Air Force, Staff Sergeant Jerry Allman of the United States Air Force, Corporal William Balcom of the U.S. Army, Senior Airman Holland Pickard of the United States Air Force, and Second Lieutenant Zachary Stead of the United States Air Force. Ooh, stand up.
Opinions expressed in this program are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of any entities they represent.
Find us on the web at mbradio.us.
Welcome back to Tracer Rounds, and I'm your host, Terry, and with me in studio tonight is my uncle, Loren Dahl, and he was in the Air National Guard in Idaho, and so he's coming to you live from Idaho tonight. Is it cold there?
Yeah, it was actually warmer in January than it is now. It's been getting down into the single digits at night.
Oh, wow. That is cold.
Yeah.
So I see why you want to do your 2 weeks at the unit instead of outside. I got it. Makes sense to me. Um, so you said you did 6 years, and while you were, an Air National Guardsman, what kind of, job were you doing in the civilian world?
Well, when I first got back from my tech school at Lowry Air Force Base, I just barely gotten home, and my brother Lyle was just wanting to start building on his own. So he asked me if I would go to work with him, and so I did, and we worked together for 6 years before I started building on my own. And I've really enjoyed that career. It's something that you can look back at the results of what you've done for a long time, and it's really rewarding.
So where did you both learn how to build? Did Lyle go to school? Did you go to school to learn how to build? Where did that skill and talent come from? Because I will say it is a skill and a talent both, because I've seen your work. I've lived in your work, because you've built houses that I've lived in, when I was a kid. So where did that come from? Who did it first, or where did you learn the craft?
Actually, it started with my dad. He actually built two houses himself in town, right close to where the Hawaii Shopping Center is.
Mhm.
And man, he worked long hours doing that. He was working on the railroad at the same time, so he was working
Wow.
late at night building a house, and so Lyle actually had gotten to college for a year or two, I believe, and decided that wasn't for him, and so he kind of talked my dad into to helping him build a house during the summer when my dad was out of school, and so they did that, and after they finished that house. Lyle didn't go on his own right away. He ended up, I think the guy that he hired to build the fireplace in that first house wanted Lyle to go to work with him, and they started building together and did that for several years till right when I was coming home was when he wanted to go on his own, and so that was perfect timing.
Right, right. It was perfect. So, how many years now have you been a builder? Because it's been a long time.
Yeah, about 50, 54, 55 years.
Wow. I'd say you know a thing or two about building.
Well, I still learn new tricks every once in a while.
Well, I tell you that I guess it was 4 years ago now. I was in Idaho for about 3 months, and I got to watch you re-roof my mom's house. And I tell you what, you are the quickest up that ladder that I've ever seen. I don't think a firefighter has anything on you, because you can move up and down that ladder with ease and agility that I covet, because I was like, I'm like one step at a time. Let me just one at a time, the one foot in front of the other. Like, let me not try to run up this thing because I know I'm falling off or falling over. So I give you big props for working that ladder the way you do, because you really impressed me. I can tell you that.
That's a result of the liquid calcium that I drink every day.
You have told me about that. I'm going to have to find out more about that. But yeah, that's pretty awesome. So I know that you don't do a lot of new home construction now. You mostly do remodeling, right?
Yes, I only do new homes if I get a pre-sold to do. I did do a new home in 2020, but the very day that that was ready to start, I also uh, was ready to start a big addition to Karcher Church of the Nazarene in Nampa, so I had to have my best friend Dave Rumba run the house job for me. I actually bid the house job and oversaw it all the way through, but he was actually there on the job every day to get the subs lined up and everything. And but yeah, that was the busiest year I've ever had. 2020, when a lot of people were slow. I had two, both of them were almost $1 million jobs, and
Wow.
so it was interesting year.
What would you say is the craziest thing you've ever built?
No. Well, I did a house over in Hyde Park in Boise that it was a little house that was only like 300 square feet.
Oh, wow. It's a tiny
And,
home.
yeah, and so this lady wanted me to add on to it for her, and so I added an addition onto the front of it, but I put I think it was a 1612 roof on it, so she could get an upstairs in it. So that was the steepest roof I ever did. You could almost stand up and shingle because it was so steep.
Wow.
uh,
That's crazy.
it turned out really cute.
So, how many houses would you say that you built? And then how many would you say that you have remodeled, if you have any kind of idea?
I I really wouldn't have any idea
Just a
about
ballpark.
that. I did quite a few when I was working with Lyle. It's possible that I've done 100 houses over all those years. The biggest one I did was a log three-story log cabin up at Cascade.
Wow.
It had a full basement under it, and then a two-story log structure above the basement. So on the lake side, you were looking at a three-story house facing the lake. And, it looked like a big hunting lodge. And
Wow.
we worked on that place for almost 2 years.
Wow. So, how did you work those big logs? Did you have some kind of crane or some kind of lift or something? Because those had to be like really heavy and really big, right? You used
Yeah.
whole trees, or did you use like halves, or what did that look like?
Yeah, we had to have a crane on site. It actually only took us like 2 weeks to put up the whole log package. The the log kit came out of Canada, and they had actually pre-stacked the whole thing in Canada, and then took it apart and numbered all the logs. And
Oh, wow.
they already had all the windows and doors cut out, and they had the walls drilled for electrical work, and it was really a nice package. And with a crane on site, we were able to put that thing up in 2 weeks. And the ridge log way up on top seems like it was almost a 24-inch round log. It was huge.
Wow. That is
So
big.
it took a big crane to put all that stuff in place.
It sounds like big Lincoln logs is what it sounds like.
We got another one to do now, right
Oh,
next
wow.
to Don's cabin up in Cascade. There's a guy that had a log kit put up, and now he needs the roof put on. So I'm remodeling an old house in downtown Nampa right now. As soon as I get done with it, we got to head up there and put the roof on. Whoever he bought the logs from put the log kit up, but it's been sitting open ever since, so it's full of snow right now.
Oh, wow. That's crazy. Wow. So how long has it been empty, or I mean, without a roof? How long did they leave it sit without putting the finishing touches on?
Well, he had actually hired some other people to put the roof on, and it was ready for the roof, I think, way back in September, it seems like. But they just never would show up, and they finally showed up after Thanksgiving and put the TGIs up. They got most of them up, but then he ended up firing them when he found out some stuff about them, and so now he wants us to go finish their work.
Oh, goodness. Well, we're going to take another quick break, and we'll come back and we'll talk about 2 other fun facts about you and about what you have been up to over the course of time. So we're going to play Joe Mewes' American Dream, and then we'll be right back with Loren Dahl.
We're living the American dream. I'm the American dream. Go to school, go to work, Sunday mornings choose a church, attend our games, our plays, PTAs. Drive our cars, flying planes, take the buses, take the trains, walk the beach, ski the slopes, living out our dreams and hopes. We're living, yes, we're living the American dream. We're the American dream. Thank you, soldier, sailor, airman, guardsman, and marine. Thank you all for fighting for our freedom and our dreams, protecting our Constitution, guarding our homes and towns, defending our shores, seas and skies, and putting boots on the ground. Some gave all for me and you. We served the red, white, and blue, protecting the American dream. Thanks to you, living the American dream. We're the American dream. The world's become a smaller place, many creeds and one big race, staking our claim to the Creator. We have to find a way for each to still be different but live in peace. Till then, we must protect ourselves, 'cause we're living, yes, we're living the American dream. I'm the American dream. We're the American dream.
Opinions expressed in this program are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of any entities they represent.
Find us on the web at mbradio.us.
Welcome back to MBR, and this is the Trace Arounds podcast, and I'm your host, Terry. And the veteran we're giving a voice to tonight is my uncle, Loren Dahl, and he was in the Air National Guard, and he is a builder and a pilot extraordinaire. So, tell me about becoming a pilot. So I know you pilot Cessna aircraft and a bunch of other ones. I'm sure I'll get wrong, so I'm not even going to try. But so did the piloting come from your service? Would you say that that gave you the inspiration then to want to fly, or would you say that came later, or what would be your enthusiasm behind aircraft besides being in the military and being around planes?
Well, I wouldn't say that my military really is what caused me to do it. I was thinking about it before I even got into the military. Uh, Dennis Ellis had taken me up in his small plane back before I joined the military, and I thought, boy, that would be a fun thing to do. And actually, my brother-in-law, Mike Marchbanks, uh, he had a chance to get into it with his dad and another guy. They partnered up and bought an airplane, and they actually were teaching the ground school at NNU, and so Mike was going to take that class, and I don't know why he asked me if I'd want to take it with him. So we both took the ground school, and I actually passed the test for the ground school before I ever took any lessons.
Wow.
At the end of the ground school class, the teacher actually took us up in her airplane and let each one of us handle the controls.
Wow.
I really didn't have the time or money to start taking lessons at the time, so it was actually years later when Randy graduated from high school. He wanted to start taking lessons, and he thought it'd be fun if we were doing it at the same time. So he was really the one that gave me the push to do it, and so we did. We were both flying at the very same time, and he would have actually got his license way ahead of me if our little trainer airplane hadn't got crashed.
Uh-oh.
We were learning to fly on a little Cessna 120 tail dragger, and Randy was actually ready to actually take his check ride to get his license right when another student ground looped the plane at the Napa airport and just about took it, almost hit the fuel pumps.
Oh no. That would have been really bad.
So that club, it had one other airplane, a 182, and so I had to start doing my training on the 182, the bigger airplane, but Randy was actually just I think he had already started building his first house, and he didn't want to put any more money into retraining on the 182, so he actually just never finished. But he actually soloed way ahead of me. They say the older you are when you start flying, the longer it takes you because you try to drive it like a car.
Oh.
And I think he soloed in about 10 hours, but I think I had 20 hours before I soloed.
Oh, wow. So Randy is your son, just for everybody's knowledge. So Randy's my cousin, and obviously Lauren's son. So it was a father and son outing to learn how to fly.
Yeah, and Randy, instead of getting his pilot's license, he became a skydiver, and he's actually one that trains skydivers now. he's certified to teach, and then he does a lot of actually taking people for jumps. And
He jumps tandem with a bunch of people.
yeah, he's taken me for 2 jumps. And, the last one we did, they took us up to 18,000 feet, and that way we got a 2-minute free fall, and it was right at the end of the day to where the sun was actually going down into the ocean right as we were in free fall. It was
Wow.
pretty spectacular looking.
You know, it's isn't it when the chute opens and it deploys and then you're just sitting up there, it's almost like being on a Ferris wheel, right? Because you can toggle right, you can toggle left, and then you can spin if you want to, but you're just getting this 360 view all the way around you, and it's pretty impressive.
Yeah, it just feels like you're really going slow.
Yes, it does.
Just like you're sitting in a chair looking around.
I mean, it's just like you're on a ride, an amusement ride, and you're just watching the world around you, and you're not even really aware like you're falling or anything, or you're floating. You're just kind of you just got a bird's eye view of everything. It's kind of amazing.
So you've done it too?
Yeah, I did 2 jumps.
All by yourself?
Yeah, out of a Cessna. Yeah, I jumped in Oklahoma, and so we had a Cessna with no seats except for the pilot seat. And so then everybody had to shuffle on their behinds all the way around the plane till they finally got to the door. But the scariest thing for me was when they pulled open the door, and then you hear this rush of air. It was shh, and it scares you to death. And then you're like, man, are we going to get sucked out of this thing? And then you move around to your position, and then you've got your back to the dashboard, to the control panels, and the jump master says, okay, are you ready? And you're like, man, I guess. And so she tells you to put your foot out on the step, and you're trying to put your foot out on the step, but it's going 20 knots or 40 knots like this. And you're like, how am I putting my foot on the step? And then, so you finally get your foot on the step, and then she's like, okay, so now grab the strut. And you're like, grab the strut? What are you talking about? So you're at the edge of the door, you got your hands on either side. Now she says, okay, now reach out and grab the strut. And you're like, grab the strut? So then you're grabbing the strut, and she's like, okay, now work your way out to the end of the wing. And I'm like, the end of the wing? What are you talking about? I'm doing 40 knots like this. I'm like, oh my gosh. And then she goes, okay, you ready? And you're like, dang, I was ready when I was at the cockpit. And then she goes, okay, let go and arch away. And you're like, okay. So you're arching away, and then you're like, oh, now this is okay. It was the whole scary part of getting out of the plane. It's like, if you would have just let me jump, it wouldn't have been so bad.
So that was where the chute opened, right? As soon as you let go.
Well, so what happened was, on your first couple of jumps, the jump master will pull the pilot. As soon as you jump out, she pulls the pilot, and then so as soon as you arch away, then your chute's already deploying.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you don't actually have to pull, the pilot pulls it for you, because they want you to not have to worry about all of that, especially when you're moving to the end of those, you're pushing your way all the way to the end of the strut on the wing. You're like, geez, like I thought I could just jump out. No, you can't just jump out.
Yeah, that seems like it'd be kind of scary doing it solo the very first time.
It was a little unnerving, and when I came down, I had a little bit of a hard landing because I didn't get all the air out of my chute, and if you don't get all the air pulled out of your chute, if you don't toggle down hard on those, because we had the round chutes, and if you don't toggle hard on them, then you can't get the air out of them, and then the parachute will kind of drag you across the ground on your legs, and you're like, you could break your leg real easy. And so then they asked, do you want to go back up? And I'm like, yeah. And he goes, well, you had a little trouble coming down the first time. You sure? And I'm like, yeah, well, let's go. Let's get this. So yeah, it was an adventure for sure. So I was going to ask you, so I know you do another gig on the side, and you do insurance estimating for repairs during like disasters. So you went to several different disasters, one in New York, Where else did you go? And how did you get started in that?
Well, that was kind of Randy again. He actually did storm chasing with a roofing company for a while when he had first moved to California. Uh, he saw an ad for a company that did storm chasing, and so he went and did that for a while, and I think he ended up mostly in the Midwest, Oklahoma and that area, and when this company would see a storm that's going to hit a city, they would send him out there almost before the storm hit, and they'd be knocking on doors. I mean, he told me about one house in Oklahoma where a big hailstorm hit, and this big mansion of a house had a tile roof, and when he got there, almost all the tile was on the ground, and there was actually a hole in the roof over the front door. When the lady opened the front door, there was hail inside the house.
Oh my goodness. Wow.
And so, but when he was doing that, he would be going on roofs and doing the estimating, but he would run into the insurance adjuster that was also coming out there and doing it. And he realized the insurance adjuster was getting paid on every job, and he only got paid if he sold a roof.
Right.
And so he actually started thinking about getting his license to go do insurance adjusting, and he, just talking with him, I thought it sounded like maybe something that would be a nice retirement job. I like to travel, and I thought, well, man, you get paid to travel.
Right.
And actually, if you get really good at it, those guys can make a lot of money. They can make, I've heard anywhere from $1,000 to a couple $1,000s a day.
Wow.
Just depending on how fast you can do your estimates. And so anyway, I was looking at it more as maybe something for retirement when I didn't feel like doing construction anymore. But the first time I did it, I did Hurricane Sandy in Long Island, New York, and I did outside adjusting that time, where I was the one that was climbing on the roofs and estimating all the damage, and I like that a lot better than my last two deployments. The second deployment was to Atlanta, Georgia, but I was doing inside adjusting at a desk, and I was at State Farm's headquarters building in Atlanta, the big 3-story building, and you had to sit at a desk for 10 hours a day, 6 days a week, and 8 hours on Sunday.
Oh, wow.
And I'm not used to sitting, and boy, that was
that was hard.
Yeah, in New York, I was out driving around all day. I was trying to get to 4 or 5 different places every day, and here I just had to sit at a desk for 10 hours.
Yeah.
And it felt like being in prison. So, but I learned a lot by being, when I was in New York, I really had nobody to help me much, to figure out how to do everything, because you're out there on your own.
Yeah.
But in Atlanta, I had people around me that could help me learn the computer part of it better, and so it was good. But then this last hurricane that hit Florida, I was hoping to get outside adjusting in Florida, and I had gotten an invite to come, but they wanted me there the next day. And I mean, if you're doing outside adjusting, you got to bring a ladder with you and your tools, and you can't hardly put a ladder on an airplane. And
Yeah.
so I had to drive all the way to Mobile, Alabama. And by the time I got there, they said they didn't need any more outside adjusters, but they said they'd give me an inside job. So I was back to do the
Back to
same
desk
thing.
duty.
But it actually only lasted 2 weeks, and they decided they even had more inside adjusters than they needed. So it ended kind of fast, but actually, I'm kind of glad it did because the good thing about the trip was I got to go visit my sister that had moved to Tennessee, and I got to see her on the way home and spend a couple days with her, and so that made it worth the trip. Even though I didn't get to do the adjusting very long,
Well, that's good.
and I enjoyed Mobile, Alabama. That's a place I wouldn't mind going back to again. The people are so friendly there, and
Yeah.
I enjoyed the time.
It's awesome. Well, we've got about before we have to close out, we've probably got about 6 or 7 more minutes. So I wanted to ask you, what would you say was your greatest takeaway from the military, and how do you think that your military service shaped what you do, or some things that you do now that you know came from your time in the service?
Oh, the technical stuff I learned, that's not something I really use much, other than I do understand electricity a little better, and I got a lot of practice of soldering. So whenever I need to solder wires or anything, well, I got practice with that, and I actually do a lot of electrical work myself now, and most of my small remodel jobs, I'll do all the electrical work myself. So, and my buddy that was in there, National Guards, with me, he actually ended up working as an electrician for a while after we got back, and so he even taught me. He came out and helped me wire Grandpa's barn. The the barn used to be our chicken house, and it used to sit where we built one of the new houses. So my dad actually took the barn down, cut it in pieces, and moved it to a new location and put it back up. So then it needed wiring. So
Oh, wow.
my friend helped me wire it, and that was kind of my first experience of actually doing electrical work, and I kind of took it from there. So yeah, I'm really glad that I, was in the military, and saw how that works and everything. It was a good experience.
Yeah, it sounds like you got the good assignment because you got to, pick your own days to do your duty. You didn't have to go out in the desert like Uncle Lyle did.
Yeah, and I'm really fascinated by airplanes, so it was fun being out there watching the planes fly. And our radar shop had two antennas pointing out a window, and they always warned us not to walk in front of those too close, because those antennas put out so much energy. If you take a flash bulb from a camera and just hold it in your hand, and you hold it in front of the antenna, it'll make the flash go off.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So they would do that to show us what that can do. So it could be detrimental to your health if you walk too close to one of those antennas out in front of it.
Yeah, I think I'd be careful. I don't think I'd want to get lit up. Well, I can tell you that my uncle Loren is a good pilot. He's taken me up in his plane, and we flew all over the Treasure Valley in Idaho, and it was a beautiful flight, and it was a beautiful ride, and he's a great pilot. So, Loren, I just wanted to tell you thank you for coming on the show. I wanted to say thank you for your service. I want to tell you, that we appreciate the forefathers that went before all of us that are retiring or have retired now in the military, because it took you and your generation to serve and for us to want to serve. I mean, it's a pattern of service, and especially in the family, seeing you, because grandma always had your picture on on her end table in her house. She had yours and she had Lyle's, and Lyle was in his Army uniform and you were in your Air Force uniform. And I always remember that because she was always so proud of you in your uniform, and always so proud to display that picture. And I don't think she ever took it down. I think she always had it up.
Well, I want to thank you for your service too. You served way longer than I did.
It doesn't even seem like it, though. It doesn't even seem like it. Oh, I wanted to welcome our guests too that tuned in tonight. So we had NJ from the World of Conscious Positive Thinking, and we had Tony from Inside the User Mind, and we had Amber from In the Weeds, and we had our president Joel on the feed tonight. And so thank you for joining. And so I think we're going to have to say goodbye. Any closing thoughts?
Yeah, I think we covered a lot.
I think we did.
It's been very good seeing you and talking with you.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you sharing your story, because, I've never heard it. So I was really interested to hear your veteran story, because I get to hear everybody else's, and it was time to hear my family story. So thank you.
You're sure welcome.
All right. Well, thank you. It has been. This is Tracer Round signing off. And I did want to say that starting February 19th at 3 p.m. Eastern, this broadcast or my show, the Tracer Round show, will also be hosted on Reese Across America. So if you're tuning in to Reese Across America, you can catch the Tracer Round podcast on Wednesdays at 3 p.m. Eastern. So thank you, Loren, and we're signing off.
All right. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in to Military Broadcast Radio. As we wrap up today's show, we want to remind you that the podcast of today's episode will be available right after we go off the air. So if you missed any part of the show or want to listen again, be sure to check it out. And remember, we're here to support and honor our veterans. Your stories and experiences matter, and we are committed to giving you a platform to share them. That's right, we're here to give our veterans a voice. So don't forget to catch the podcast and stay connected with us, giving our veterans a voice.